All right, we are now live. Awesome. So this is chat number one, I guess, for Endangered Languages, which is a GitHub repository that we started, may become an organization at some point. Who knows? I'm Richard Littauer. If anyone's actually watching this, I don't know, but just background. I'm Richard Littauer. I have a degree in linguistics from University of Edinburgh, and then I'm almost done with a degree in computational linguistics from University of Saarland. Just had a thesis left to do. I'm a front-end developer living in Silicon Valley, working for MIT Media Lab. Um, and yeah, really interested in minority languages, endangered languages, low resource languages, anything with sparse data, anything where I could potentially help out, and open source software, and trying to cut down on the amount of software bloat in the industry, particularly involving like multiple grants going to multiple communities where one grant. Um, that's sort of my background. Um, Gina, do you want to say your background?
Sure. I did my master's in linguistics in Delaware. Before that, I did a bunch of fieldwork in Pakistan, and since then, many other places. I also enjoy open source, been doing it for a little while. I used to be a Linux sysadmin when I was an undergrad, and sort of blossomed into a developer over time. And took some courses in computer science also to supplement that. And I think I'd have pretty similar interests to you. I think open source is hard to reuse, but I think it's always possible, especially with newer things like GitHub, where the load contained with open source is less than it used to be on SourceForge and stuff like that.
Yep. Cool. So a guy called Hugh, who hasn't responded to my invites to this chat, said that he was interested in being here and had a lot of feedback. But Gina first suggested that we have this talk. So we have like a few things we need to cover today, or should talk about today. The general issue which started the idea of having a video chat was that I want to make an organization on GitHub for mirroring code which isn't on GitHub, or for mirroring code which may go off GitHub. So there's a lot of proprietary software out there, for which there are like some open source things as part of it, and there's a lot of open source software that's attached to universities or institutions or particular academics, which is always sort of in danger of just being lost, especially when like funding dies for a project. So I was thinking, instead of just letting that stuff die, it might be useful actually to just mirror it somewhere so that it's always going to be around. And so I opened up an issue on my repository on GitHub called Endangered Languages to basically ask anyone if anyone else thought this was a good idea. And then there was like a lot of response from a couple of people. Really weird idea, and in some cases, a bad idea because you're going to end up with like stale software. But I was hoping we could like discuss that. So the topics we have to discuss today are whether that's cool, marrying source words, etc. Stale code is cool. How we're going to curate this organization if we make one. What the ultimate goal of this entire project is. What sources should we link to if we're on the list, or if we're in this organization? Like, should we just pull in everything we can or not? Who is the target audience for doing this? Like, why would we do any of this? And what sort of code, like, is language-specific code important, or more broadly applicable code more important? So, I don't know if you have any comments at this point. I don't really know where to start exactly.
We can probably just go down the list.
Cool. So
end up being quite short if she doesn't make it.
Exactly, yeah. So for me, I think it'd be cool to have an organization, basically.
I think I agree with you. I can see how this list will have other projects associated to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's like a kind of a dichotomy between my suggestion of having an organization and the actual list I already have already, which is just links. In the sense that like the links are useful, but you end up with link rot, and you end up with none of those sources being saved, right? So if someone takes down a thing, then the link is gone, and then the source is gone. So what I would just like to do is just say, here's a link to the repository that might be useful, the source code, and then here's also a link to our copy of it. And then periodically go through and update our copy to make sure it works.
Yes.
And that seems to me like a pretty good thing to do. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's really a problem. We can easily add a bot for Jenkins or Travis or someone who will pull down the code and up it and push it to the organization to ensure that it's not stale. It's very automatable. It's just a kit.
Cool. I agree, and I think that's a good idea. I guess the main issue is like, who is this for, or what are we going for?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the comments was that there's pretty much infinite software that we could reuse for endangered language work. So the question is trying to curate the list, because like some of the things we had in training materials we thought were cool. It's completely useful actually. We forked them for that, so maybe they are useful.
Yeah.
But that's going to make the list really long. On the other hand, maybe it doesn't matter if it's long because it's helping it be searchable, right? So if you Google something, you might end up with that entry on this list and be happy.
Yeah, so for me, I don't really care if it's long. I don't have the resources right now to go through every resource on the list and test it out personally and see if it's good or not. And also, that wouldn't be a good way of testing, I guess, because that's kind of coming from a perspective of me. But like, I don't know before the fact what'll be useful for anyone. Originally, I started this list because I just wanted to see what was out there, and it turns out there's a lot, but it's nowhere ever defined everywhere. And like, there's no place I can go to find everything. And I think making that sounds like a good idea, even for the sake of having like just a smaller subset of the web to search. If I could just go in this one document and find a lot of stuff, that'd be really useful. Towards that, yeah, cool. And towards that, I think that like that kind of eliminates a lot of the questions. So like, how are we going to curate it? Well, I don't think we have to. I think if we're going to curate it, we can make another resource to curate it. Like if you want to actually make a book about it or a blog or something, you could do that. That's not what I'm coming from. I'm coming from, let's make a concordance. Let's make like an index, like just a general database of resources, not actually a way of helping some anonymous person who's coming from a certain standpoint, which we then have to predict and plan towards develop things. I just really want to be like, here's a resource, use it, and anyone can use it because it's not in itself, it's agnostic about where you're coming from, basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's best.
Cool. Yeah.
I think it's something that people aren't used to doing, but I think just the way the GitHub works will make it work.
Yeah. Well, so there's already a whole like tradition of lists on GitHub, mostly under the awesome tag, awesome dash whatever.
Yeah.
And they're generally just really long and just full of every resource you could ever use. And it's not a problem because you can go on there and just search for things or go to certain subcategories. And I think that's fine. And they work really well.
I think what I meant is many linguists are used to organizations who end up managing lists of stuff, and it's a burden for them.
Yeah.
Whereas being an awesome list on GitHub isn't as burdensome because we can all pretty much help.
So one of the things I would like to do is actually make PR easier and make like editing it easier, like make the process of making a pull request easier, right? So I think people are kind of. I even got this feedback from a few linguists who like emailed me being like, you should add this in the list and this link is wrong. It's like, well, I say right there in a paragraph that the way to edit it is click this button and then type it in. It's not hard, but it's still a hurdle. But I think that that's going to change as more coder linguists begin and start using it. So yeah, I don't know, this is a good idea.
it's hard to make pull requests even easier than what you've already done.
Yeah.
You've done pretty well. GitHub generally slowly gets, more user-friendly over time, even for people who've never used any kind of version control. So, I mean, yeah, it's better if they could do it because otherwise you're getting emails.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind getting emails because it's not a huge load. I just mind curating every single link that anyone sends to me. Which is why I have like open issues with like tons of links being like, look into this, because at some point it'll take like 2 hours to do that, and I just.
That's why I thought we should have a meeting, because you're getting too many open issues that could have been pull requests really quickly.
Yeah, so there's a lot. Personally, I accept pretty much anything that's marginally relevant. So if anyone wants to just go through and add stuff, I feel pretty good about it. I don't really mind. I'm happy with everything going in, and I think language-specific stuff should go in because it's going to be applicable not to related languages, to someone else or to that language. Like, so I don't have a problem with having a giant, humongous list for every one of the 7,000 languages in the world, because to me that'd be amazing, because then we finally actually have resources for these other languages. I just want to know what's out there, right? So that's kind of the perspective I'm coming from, where like issues are there to basically help other people know where you might want to look, but really just throw everything you can at them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Cool.
That's great, and that will be really easy for people to understand and use.
Yep. I think we have a problem on this chat with you and I are coming from the same exact perspective and agree with each other, I think, on everything. So, cool. Awesome.
I don't really have anything to add. I'm trying.
Yeah. No, it's cool. So, I mean, the real question I wanted to pose was like, would you like to, like, would it be cool if we opened up another organization besides open source field linguists for mirroring code?
Yeah. Let's talk about that one. So the open source field linguistics org was never designed to mirror code, really. So
yeah,
that's a really good point. And we have some repos in our GitHub that we care about more than mirrored code.
Yeah.
What else? On the other hand, we have some resources to help.
Cool. Yeah. For me, it was really confusing because you guys don't have like a description repository, and I had no idea why there are 53 members of the group, and I just didn't really know what I was looking at for a long time.
Yeah.
So
we were trying to hide it, actually. So we were under instruction to hide the whole technical side of the project for similar reasons that other people outlined. So we're on GitHub, but not easy to find.
Yeah.
Or but now GitHub has the ability to add a description of the group, so I put that there.
Awesome. Yeah.
Which
well, like I would like to
before.
open up I would like to open up a new group that's very similar, except incredibly open and with no code natively in itself. Like no code dedicated to, like, from that group, but rather just forks of everything. And if someone wants to make a repo, they can fork it into their thing, but like it's not going to have repositories that are just part of itself. It'll just have forks or mirrors, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. I want to think a little bit more because, yeah, about whether or not we have to have two, but I think, like, just technically from a technical standpoint, like we mentioned, that's probably better.
Well, the reason I want to have two is because I don't think that all of the things which I like in my list are actually, or that I want to categorize, like my area of interest, are actually defined in underneath the heading of field linguistics. So field linguistics is very specific. It's about linguistics in the field for linguists. I'm actually coming from another perspective where I want to help developers in their own languages build resources for their languages. Not data collection, not linguistics works, not syntax work, not HPSG, whatever. Like developers, non-linguists. Does that make sense?
Oh, I know. I do the same, but yeah, I do the same. So I when I went to Georgia last year, we tried to work a lot on what would make sense for local developers to use so that they can have better support in their language and provide better support.
Awesome.
I agree. I think the tools we build for field linguists can be usually useful for the actual community, depending on how you build them. So we still try to do that with our source code, like our core. We do computational linguistics and machine learning mostly. We don't do any field work in the code.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, the other reason I wanted the things because I don't know what. So
it's also
open
the wrong
source,
name for the project.
Yeah, open source field linguistics is also a company, right?
No.
No. Okay.
It's LingSync, which is the project name. Same
Cool.
thing. So LingSync is a open source, open-ended project that was started by some researchers at McGill and Concordia in Montreal and has grown since. And it's just the name of the code when for users so that they can find that and not find the code.
Cool.
They were worried about users getting confused if they found really technical documentation and then running away from the app screaming. So
That makes
we
sense.
have two names for the same project.
All right, cool. That makes sense.
So yeah, I follow.
Cool. So, just to clarify, you think we should have another group?
I think you should have your own organization that's focused on
cool.
repurposing
like GitHub organization,
software.
not necessarily a group, but yeah. Cool. So
is endangered language the best term right now? So
no.
Probably endangered language. You might want to use low resource language or something else. It's more
Low resource languages is better. Low resource minority languages.
Not always minority. In Georgia, Georgians the majority, but it's still actually really low resource in terms of any sort of indexing for databases or anything beyond fonts format.
Yeah, low resource is probably good. Fonts are amazing. Fonts are all pretty much covered, which is awesome.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. So, low resource languages, I guess, is a good name. And then I guess opening up forking my list into it would be the first thing, and then opening up another repository describing the purpose of it. At which point we can also hash out more in GitHub issues and just discuss stuff there. I think that makes sense to me.
Yes. And maybe one repository for doing automated stuff. So I think I could even think of a way to scrape the issue page and ask it to get to a link and insert the link into the README.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be fun.
I mean, we could make some sort of a cron job that would help out.
Yeah. That'd be sweet. I think that should be able to be, if it can be done in the meta repository, like as a one meta repository instead of two. That might be smart, just so we can have
in the same repository that describes the project?
Yeah. Because anything to do with meta for the project should be together, basically, when it's better, right? Just so you don't have, like, scope leakage. Sweet. Yeah, that'd be good. How long are you going to be in Vietnam, out of curiosity?
Till April.
Oh, cool. I might see you. Maybe.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I'm moving to Indonesia in a month, and then I'm going to go to Vietnam, so...
Are you moving to Jakarta, or where?
Bali.
Okay. I was just in Lombok, actually, as part of my vacation.
Oh, cool.
So
awesome.
If you had a choice, I'd recommend Lombok.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm going to Ubud, but I'll see if I can travel around. So,
Very good.
all right, is there anything else?
We've
Yeah.
covered the agenda, right? Let's take a
Yep.
quick look back. I do, of course, vote for mirroring SourceForge because
Yep.
it's easier to collaborate on GitHub. And I know some projects that we use that are open source, but they're open source on their own websites somewhere where no one can find them.
Yep.
So I'd be happy to get those contributed to the organization.
I definitely wanna fork those. And the great thing about it is that if anyone's put an open source license on it, then they can't really complain, which is awesome.
Yeah, they're not going to. I think that it's just like keeping up with changes in version control is really difficult, especially for researchers who are like actually retired. The project I'm thinking about, they're retired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, and like I said, like I'm really not worried about Yeah, no, I think that's good. So I'll just start that up. Maybe Hugh will see this or not, or someone else will see this and listen. And if they have any comments, if you, a viewer, have any comments, feel free to comment on like the GitHub issue for this, which is just like github.com/richardlit/endangered-languages and go to issues from there. And
we
I
can
guess
probably post it in the description.
Yeah, cool. I'll do that. And thanks, everyone. I guess that's it. Thanks, Gina.
Thank you for making the list. It was awesome. Very exciting to see it.
No problem. Fun to make. Thanks for suggesting a call. And have a good day. And yeah, catch you later.
You too. Bye.
Ciao.